So I'll just start. My name is Kathy Van Voorhees, and I've actually been a RISE member since last June when I came to the 2-day program or 1-day program. And then I joined Stock Legal in January, and I'm excited to be there. And I'm hoping I can help some of you navigate some of this. And I'm going to tell you, there have been so many things coming out so quickly that we've all been scrambling to kind of stay up on top of things. And I want to answer the questions you have and see, hopefully at least point you in the direction to find what you need. And Meredith, thank you for your question. And I started looking at, and I've been following the CARES Act, which was, I think, the second or third piece of federal legislation that came down, but it has the payroll protection piece, and it also was provided with that. There was an unemployment piece that came. So where I'm going with this is typically unemployment's not available to self-employed individuals or kind of gig economy freelance workers. So the new federal legislation is adding that availability. And I was just checking the Missouri Department of Labor site. It's not yet in place in Missouri. Now there's something on the website that says it'll be down from like 9 o'clock tonight till 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. And my hope is that that's what's happening, because they also talk about this being available as of April 12th for people. So I'm hoping that's what's coming into play. And one of the questions I had, and I think one of the questions Meredith asked, was about, how this would affect people that may have health insurance needs too. And because in our economy, health insurance is generally linked to employment, that's a huge issue. Now, Missouri has, if you are newly unemployed, even though the open enrollment phase is over for marketplace insurance in Missouri, that's one of the exceptions when you can apply outside of the open window. And the rates and the plans you're eligible for will depend on what your zip code is, where you live, and your income level. And of course, then your income. So, I mean, and if for some families it might qualify for Medicaid, and that's if you have dependent children, if you're disabled as an adult, or some combination of those, but there are income guidelines for Medicaid too, which are lower. And in Missouri, unfortunately, our state has some of the least amount of coverage for that.
I'm gonna pause you for one quick moment, just for context. Meredith is actually in Denver. Now I know that some of this is crossover, and I know that you're an expert in Missouri and not necessarily Denver.
Oh, Meredith, I didn't look at Denver.
Yes, but health insurance wise, I believe that whole interruption piece is something that is true whatever state you're in.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. And I'm sorry, Meredith, I looked specifically at Missouri. I did not I should have thought to look at Denver, but
that's okay.
So I think that in Denver, they might be ahead of Missouri. It might already be there and it might not be. But the way that, and in Denver, you may have more, there may be more options. It may not be as restrictive as Missouri, because I know Missouri did not expand Medicaid and accept federal funding to expand Medicaid. Some other states, most other states, I don't know how many did, other states did. But the same thing should apply in Denver for what we call marketplace. Here is the Obamacare, or the, what's the other name for it? The Obamacare plan. So that may, you should also, that's a federal program that should also be available in Denver to you. So generally the way it works, Medicaid is for disabled people and children and people that fall way below the poverty line. Then if you make too much money for that, but then the marketplace or the Obamacare plan, the exchange, that's kind of a sliding scale based on your income. Now, if you had healthcare coverage through your employer, of course, you'd be eligible for COBRA. The issue for most people is when they're not working, it's very hard to afford the COBRA payment. But because, which to me always seemed like, okay, great. But now, and especially it's more now because I have to pay what the employer was paying before. But you can retroactively accept it too. So you can kind of wait a couple months and see if you don't need healthcare, if you don't have chronic conditions or anything that needs healthcare. And then if something comes up, you can retroactively request it and check. You'll get information from your employer about your COBRA options. And I think it's 90 days, but check in that information and ask your employer, because I know even if you don't opt to take it right away, you can go back and accept that. And so,
so I'm on the Obamacare.
yes.
And what has been really nice for me, so I don't know, Meredith, if this is applicable to you, but what's been really nice for me is because I'm a startup and I don't make that much money, at least not yet.
Yes.
I'm able to take a pretty big, I get a pretty big, what's that called? I get a pretty big credit, and their money is going to look like down the road. It is something that you can true up at the end.
Stace, your volume's going in and out.
Oh, okay.
I know it's hard to, I think suddenly with everyone working at home and on my internet, which is usually very reliable, has been a little sketchier lately. But so
a question.
Yes.
Regarding the, so suppose that you were going to try to apply for Obamacare, and does money that you might be receiving for unemployment count as your income?
Yes.
So that
I believe it does.
So it would potentially make you not eligible for Medicaid because it's really, really hard to qualify for Medicaid.
So
it would, and it would potentially be too high to even really get a discount on Obamacare.
It will depend. So if it could potentially not make you not qualify for Medicaid. Now, Medicaid generally is for disabled people and people with children like 1 to 18. So, and it's coverage for them. Healthy adults are not eligible for Medicaid.
Oh, I thought
over
Medicaid was, sorry.
Of course, I may just be talking Missouri.
I might be wrong. I had understood Medicaid to include people underneath a certain income level, and Medicare to be for people who are over 65.
No, that's generally correct. And so look at Denver, because again, I was specifically looking at Missouri, and in Missouri you have to have dependent children under 18 or, and it's varying income levels. If you have a kid that's an infant, then more people are eligible, and then the income, it drops. So look specifically at Colorado.
Okay.
Where's a good place for her to check? Like, where do you look that information up?
So I would look for, and let me look. So in Missouri, it's the Department of Health. So I would look for Colorado or Health and Family Services or Health and Human Services. So look at that, and I'll look for that for Colorado. But it's the state level is going to have that information.
This is not specific to me. I'm just sort of in general, in the current state of affairs, I have so many questions around, like, how are people, so many people are unemployed, and COBRA is just not realistic.
Affordable. It's not a real option for, right.
I don't know anyone who can afford COBRA, including myself. And Obamacare, if you're in sort of a middle income bracket, you price yourself out of any of those credits pretty quickly. So it's not very discounted anymore. And to qualify for Medicaid, at least in the past when I have tried, I lived in New York and sometimes had years when I made $15,000 a year and my income was too high to qualify for Medicaid. So I think people are, and we're sort of in this crisis where some people are going to need some serious health care,
right,
and not be able to not have insurance. And are they just going to are hospitals just not going to charge them for it? Are they going to turn them away?
Well, I don't know. I think all this is yet to be, we're going to be figuring this out. And so that's the hard part, is that I think that, as our federal government is putting things through, I keep waiting for them to address the healthcare. It's like first the employment and this, and I was like, okay, because in this country, our healthcare is tied to employment. Once you put all these people out of jobs, they're not going to have healthcare anymore. And so I think this is something that I'm hoping will be addressed. I think because I've been listening to like different webinars and things like that to try and get information to pass on to clients and people. And, the big thing I'm hearing is go talk to your state representative, go ask your state representative for help. And I'm wondering, I'm like, okay, are they going to be able to help all these people? But is this to make a political point, or is this actually to get people help? So hopefully your healthcare providers will work with you and give you payment plans. I'm thinking, well, it's sad to say, but I'm guessing that there will be a lot of bankruptcies filed after this, because one of the number one reasons people file bankruptcy is medical bills. And hopefully some of your providers will work with you. But unfortunately at this point, there's no like one good answer for people. It's like a patchwork of different things. And maybe what will happen is we'll see some expansion of ACA or Obamacare, and see if in response to this, some of that gets expanded. But again, that's always such a political dicey thing that now we're going to be asking majority Republican, state houses and senates to expand that. And I don't know what's going to happen with that. Now, one other thing, if people have any federal student loans that are direct loans held by the federal government, they are not taking payments they should not, from March to September, and they will not be adding interest onto your loans. And now that is through the Department of Education, and it's very specific, because some people have federal loans that are now held by private companies, and this is just the federal direct loans. But I can give you information on, I had that up. So that was, and even if you're for people doing public interest work that are on the forgiveness plan for public interest, it will not affect that. This will not add like extra payments onto the end that you have to make. So that was another place where people can get some relief. And I think most of you
do you have to contact the loan servicer or whatever and ask them to stop payments, or does that just automatically, they're going to stop taking payments? That's
a good question. So if you have automatic payments set up, you might want to stop that payment. So I have those student loans from law school still. So I had made a payment after March 15th was when that went into effect, and we made a payment on March 20 something. And we actually asked for that to be refunded. I'm still waiting to hear what's going to happen with that. But if you've made a payment after that, request a refund, because that's something that should be abated, that they should not be taking. Again, this is just for the U.S. direct loans, federal loans. But that's another place where hopefully people can get some relief. And hopefully some of the private lenders will follow suit. We might have to wait and see, but I'm hoping that will happen. And with anything, obviously, see who's willing to work with you. Some mortgage companies are willing to work with people, some are not. But if you can't pay, you cannot get evicted and you cannot be foreclosed on. Now, that doesn't help if you just want to try and stay on top of the payments, but different lenders are doing different things. So that's another access to try and get some assistance. So the other thing I wanted to go back and talk about was the just applying for unemployment benefits, because it is taking a little bit longer to get through and to get that done because of the volume of applications. But with the new programs that are put into place, you also will get benefits for additional time, and there will be additional funds allocated to get more than you would normally get under usual circumstances. So those are different ways to kind of make up for what you're, I don't know, different ways to try and to get you through this time. Go ahead.
Are they automatically, like if you apply for unemployment, are they automatically giving you that like full period of time, or is it one of those things where you still have to call in every week and say, I'm looking for work and I haven't found anything, and then they'll certify it for longer?
You still have to, even though with that extended time, you still have to show that you're making efforts to look for work, but it should get extended through there, and it shouldn't be like where you have to apply for a special, program to do it. It should work together. But again, the different states are putting this into play. So whenever you're working with bureaucracy, things can get a little wonky. So I would always just be proactive and look for things and ask, and not just kind of wait to see if it happens. I was going to say, I had a tab up that had the student loan information, and then it went away when I got on the Zoom.
Meredith, I'm going to apologize. Meredith, you had specific questions in your email. Are we hitting them, or are there other things that that you were really hoping to get?
No, these are the questions I had. And some context for Kathy, I sent this email at like 2 in the morning last week.
Right.
Mike, I do still have a job right now. I feel very grateful for that. But last Thursday, my company laid off 40% of our workforce. And I don't know how much longer I'll have a job for.
Right.
And I just, like, I know these programs are in place, but I also don't want to be bankrupt. Like, if I did lose my job, and maybe I can defer some payments, but then when at some point, everyone's gonna be like, okay, great, we let you delay your payments for 3 months. Now we need all.
So the other thing I always tell people, and I help a lot of people start their own business and small businesses, when you need credit, you can't get it. And when you don't need credit is when you can get it. So anyone now is the time to apply for the home equity line of credit. Now is the time to apply for any other loan you can while you have a job. And hopefully it's something you don't need to use, but it's the kind of thing that might get you through some of those times. Now and I know right now, like home rates are going down. Now might be the time to refinance your house or your condo and take some equity out just to have it sitting there.
I don't know if I fully understand what you're saying. So like, get approved for a line of credit, then if you needed extra cash, you would have it, but you're not necessarily taking out a loan.
Right.
Okay.
So get approved. So a line of credit in some ways, and it's always weird to me, it's kind of like a loan, but not, it's a loan when you start taking the money out. But if you get approved for the line of credit and you have it there, then it's there if you need it. But once you lose your job, you won't have the income to get approved. So you get approved now.
Can you only do that with like a house or something as collateral, or like if you're not a homeowner, can you open that kind of a line of credit?
All banks are different. You can't, like a home equity line of credit, obviously you need to own a home for or property for, but otherwise then you can try to get a personal loan, but you would most likely need to put up some kind of collateral. Otherwise it's credit cards, but then, you're stuck with credit card, but if might be better than nothing. So whatever credit is available to you, now is the time to get it. Now's the time, it is going to be a credit card, now's the time to apply for it, because you can show the income. And when
I applied for a ton of credit cards to get Rise open because I got the same advice, but I wasn't able to get a line of credit. And so there are a lot of great zero interest for a certain time period credit cards. Now, I applied for so many and got so many that it did take a hit on my credit, but I was able to bounce back, and it was really helpful to have those on hand.
Yeah. And for a while, I had my own law firm for 9 years. And the best thing I did before I started that, I started in 2007, right before the last financial crisis. And the best thing I did was take a line of credit on a house. And then once I opened and all the clients I knew I had kind of were gone and lost their jobs, and I didn't have the book of business I was counting on, we were able to use that line of credit to keep our mortgage and keep our house. So in the end, it ended up being something I was glad I did. So, there's those things. The other things I wanted to talk about was if anyone is self-employed or has their own business, that, one of the things that started the CARES Act came out that had the payroll protection plan loan. And I don't know if anyone's applying for that. That's one thing that I've spent a lot of time getting up to speed on and helping people with in the last week. And that is something you apply through banks, but banks that are connected to the SBA. There's some programs where you would apply directly to the SBA and some through the banks. But I'm looking at you all nodding. It doesn't sound like that applies to anyone here. So I won't go on more about that. Or are you?
I'm happy to hear anything. And it looks like, I don't know what Dana needs or is find helpful, but anything that you have to share, I find interesting. So
I think it would be helpful to hear that information.
Okay. So there's the CARES Act, which included several programs for people in the, what's the US Senate? And one of those was the payroll protection plan, which was a forgivable loan for businesses that to cover their payroll. It was to encourage people to keep their employees on and cover payroll for, I think, about like 8 weeks, and it would be a forgivable loan. But the confusing thing about it was that you apply, and the applications just opened up, I think it was Friday night at midnight, and then the application changed like 30 minutes before it went live, and you apply through banks and lenders for the SBA loan. And so it's backed by the SBA, but you apply through lenders, and they set aside a certain amount of money, and there was a big kind of scramble because I think everyone was worried it's first come, first serve. But I think there will be more money getting funded into that once the initial money is gone. But it's a loan that people can use to encourage businesses to keep their employees, and it will cover payroll of your employees up to 150,000. So for example, if you have an employee, up to 100,000. If you have
employees.
What?
But what if you don't have employees?
So if you don't have employees and you're self-employed, there's a separate, you could be, if you're a subchapter S and are employee of your own business, then it would work for you. But if you are self-employed, and then that's where you want to use the pandemic unemployment assistance, but that's through unemployment, and you would file for that through the Missouri Department of Labor.
Or the Denver Department.
Or the Denver Department of Labor.
Okay, this is Dana. I'm sorry. I don't want to get you off topic. I don't want to get off your flow here, but I'm trying to figure out. So when I logged on, okay, here's my I'll just give you my brief scenario.
Dana, where are you? Are you in Denver?
Yeah, I'm in Denver. I'm in Denver, okay. Yep. Mm-hmm. And so I have a business where I have no employees.
Okay.
And it was just getting started before this. So I guess I got confused yesterday because I went on to that, I think it's the relief fund, the disaster relief fund, where at first it was saying like up to $10,000 loan if you apply.
Yes.
But then as of just yesterday, what I saw is they changed something and they go, Well, it's only a maximum of $1,000 per employee. That was out of the blue yesterday. That popped up, which is fine. I don't have any employees. So to me, what that would say to me is, if I'm considering myself, well, I'm not even technically an employee of an LLC from what I can understand. But either way, it looked like I could apply, but only get maximum of $1,000 on the one small business disaster relief fund thing. Am I wrong? Because at first it was like you might apply for up to $10,000, and then you would apply and it said within a week we'll tell you. And then just yesterday I got these notes that said things have changed. It's a maximum of $1,000 per employee. Have you heard this, or have people been
No,
talking
I
about
actually,
that?
now I'm looking, because that's actually the first.
Look at it. I might have even been like midnight last night. I saw this because I went back on and again, I get it. Like, I don't have any employees, so I understand, but I'm just kind of like, does that mean if they approve me, I can expect only $1,000 or?
So my understanding was that that was in advance on the loan. And so let me double check, which would mean it would just be that you can, that's all you would be advanced. But let me look at that.
Yeah, that was my understanding as well. That Dan, I think it might have been a misinterpretation. So the it wasn't the it's called the EDIL. It wasn't that the EDIL was only giving you 10,000. It was just that the 10,000 was this amount that you could, in theory, get immediately. I had my 10,000, but it sounds like they have potentially switched that.
Kind of, yeah. And it, like I said, I really didn't even think I would qualify for 10,000 anyway, because like I said, I don't have any employees. But then when I saw the note that came back later, I was like, okay, well, if I do get approved, what I'm reading sounds like the most one person, could get approved for would be 1,000. And then if you had employees, 1,000 per employee. But again, this was just yesterday, not sure.
So what I'm seeing is it provides up to 10,000. So yeah, that might be based on the size standards.
Dan, the thing I found interesting, we had a thing with Anders CPA firm on Monday regarding this whole act. And what it sounded like as of Monday, now granted we are now on Thursday, so who knows, was that there was a lot of discussion and debate over exactly what you're asking, over self-employed and people who are LLCs that are not S Corps and all that stuff. So my impression as of Monday was that all of this is still sort of being debated and decided on.
Right.
Which is not helpful, but that's just what I know as of Monday.
So
yeah, I think you're pretty right.
And I think it's less clear with the programs going through CARES and SBA and the EDIL, but the unemployment is already, that seems to be more established. Well, I say more established, it's not even in place yet, but and that's separate. That's the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. It's called PUA, or sometimes it's FPUA, Federal Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. So follow both channels. So one channel is that unemployment, which would be through your state Department of Labor. And the other channel is the EDIL, which will be through the SBA and SBA approved lenders, or for the Paycheck Protection Plan. But the EDIL is directly through the SBA. So keep your eye on both of those avenues, because for the self-employed people, there's possibilities yet to be fully fleshed out on both of those. Does that make sense?
Do you think that this is we just fall into this little crack of when you don't have employees and you don't work for a company, but you have an LLC? It's just kind of, I just feel like I'm in a weird place, and I get it, but it's like, it's almost like you don't know where you fit in. You kind of don't fit any of the models, because of course the priority is to help people keep their employees, which I get.
Yeah, except that is such a growing part of our economy. I mean, that's what we see. Everyone's becoming gig workers, gig economy, everyone's becoming freelance, everyone's working for themselves. And it's that combination of, not following there, and then the healthcare piece, because that's where we're going to see, I don't know. So basically the government programs lag behind what's actually happening. And the same with the legislation that's coming through now. And so, but it's my understanding, and they're really trying to take that into account. And it's just, they're doing these things so quickly, and there's so much kind of fighting, political arguing as they go through.
Right.
That it's like they're not coming through fully formed, you know, they're coming through like half, but because they're kind of getting rushed to market and people need it. And then it's like, okay, we'll put the broad strokes in and we'll figure out the details later. But now we're just watching as those details are unfolding. So it's everything
complex.
is changing, you know, as we're speaking. It's changing and it's getting developed and you know, fleshed out more. But
Yeah, can I just ask a broad question about self-employment in general? I mean, unemployment in general. Never filed for it in my life. This is so crazy, but let's just say, so if I end up filing for it, because as far as I can tell, it's not ready yet for people like me or gig. I mean, like you just said it too, I think. Like I went on the website and it said, keep checking back. We're not ready for people that are self-employed yet. Eventually they will be. But anyway, so let's say I get it. Does that mean, and then let's say I take unemployment, but then next week I get some random job that hires me. I guess I've never really looked into it. So if I take unemployment, does that mean that I can't take any work?
no. So what happens usually is if you, for example, they'll just reduce your unemployment based on what you're getting paid in the job. So if you get unemployment and then you get a part-time job or you get a job, then it gets adjusted based on.
But a job in terms of an employment job, or like I guess when I say a job, like my business have been, you know, individuals hire me to do work. I guess like I'm debating the benefit, like if I take unemployment, is that going to limit me then for pursuing little projects with my business that may come about?
So
during
here's
this time.
the thing I would say. I mean, in the past, it's never been an issue because in the past, self-employed people have not been able to get unemployment.
Right.
So I guess when I was answering the question, traditionally, if someone worked for another employer, lost their job, took unemployment, and then got like some part-time work, their unemployment would get reduced. Now, you technically are still employed. You're just not making income because you're not getting hired. Your business is not getting hired.
Yeah.
So I would think it would operate the same way, because what they want to do is they want to, I don't know, I mean, I would hope it would operate the same way. I don't know exactly how it will be fleshed out because,
Yeah.
you know,
It's new. It's all new.
It's all new. But I would think that if you got some work, it would just, but here's the thing, and this is why it's never probably, I mean, it's your business. If you got paid, you don't necessarily, it doesn't always mean you can pay yourself. If your business makes money, you have to cover business expenses.
Right.
So I don't know how that will play out. And then maybe it'll be something like when you, at the end of the year, when you get, you know, the 1099s or whatever, then they'll figure it out. But so some of these may be good things to check in if, you know, if you work with a CPA or something for your business, just to make sure you keep paying whatever quarterly taxes or whatever you need to pay. But I mean, these are all things that are going to be fleshed out.
Right.
But, and I'm assuming in your within LLC that you are not taxed as an S Corp, it's just a pass through.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't want to go through all the paperwork and, you know, get money that then kind of like defeats my, you know, I don't know. I just,
well,
right now I feel like I
advice would be,
but next week I might get a job and go, oh, well, now I wish I didn't take unemployment if it's going to be more hassle than it's worth. I just don't know. It's confusing, but.
I know my advice would be that if that's your issue, then you're in a better place. I would much rather you take the money and not need it than not take the money and end up needing it.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to look at it in advance. Like, I don't want to get into a situation and then wish I did it, and I don't know.
Yeah. So, you know, check that's why I would say, like, get everything that you think that you can. And then, I mean, obviously, if you don't need it, don't use it. But then it's going to be harder to retroactively get it.
Right.
So
Kathy, are you hearing anything about, and this may be a total unknown, are you hearing anything about how long it is going to take people to, like, from the time when their application gets accepted to actually receive money? Like, I know in the past there's sometimes a waiting period, and have you heard anything about that kind of stuff?
I'm hearing that it's taking longer than the way it's being presented up front. But right now, people are still, the first payments haven't even gone out yet. So I don't know. I mean, the first applications for the CARES Act loans and things, the first applications were accepted, you know, Friday at midnight. Now then they changed the application right before that. So then people had to go back, people that had it all ready to go had to go back and do more homework and get it done. So I think a lot of applications were filed over the weekend, and people are waiting to hear now. So I don't know. I'm hoping it'll be a quick turnaround. They're saying it's going to be a quick turnaround. They're saying they're not doing credit checks and that they're not, you know, looking into other things. A lot of banks are first working with the people that are their existing clients and customers. So, and at first I think that, I don't know, I heard so many rumors that I don't even want to, you know, that some of them may not be true, and because people telling me this were people with agendas too. So existing lenders that have worked with the SBA for a long time were telling me that, oh, they're gonna, the people with the SBA lending programs already in place are gonna be preferred from the SBA. So we're gonna get our people through first, and we're gonna help our customers first and then other customers. But because of this, a lot of banks are now applying to be SBA lenders that weren't SBA lenders before. So there are banks that didn't have that before that now will have that status. And so I don't know. And these again are rumors I heard from bankers. This didn't come from any reliable, you know, source. So it's so hard to say. And it's like we can speculate, and it's like we'll be able to look back afterwards when people don't, you know, and then figure out exactly what happened. But that's not helping people going into it. So unfortunately, it's in a situation where we're all just trying to figure it out and see what happens. But again, it's like, I would apply for everything that you possibly, and I know it's going to take time, and I know it's going to be a hassle. And, you know, you just went through, you know, another refinancing, and it always takes longer than you think it will. But I'd rather you guys, again, have that. And it doesn't hurt. I mean, yes, it's your time and it's your energy, but it doesn't cost money to apply for these things. And so it's worth it to take advantage of everything that you can. Because oh, go ahead.
Are federal student loans, is that a kind of thing that you can refinance in terms of like negotiating a lower interest rate?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the only way I think you could do that is if a private lender bought the loan. So you might be able to do that and have a private lender buy it. But once you do that, you're not eligible for a lot of the federal protections. So, and there's a, Meredith, I'll send you, because this thing that I listened to, it's called Savvy, I think was, I don't know. There was a good program I listened to that I'll send you the link for afterwards, about this federal student loans, because that was, they had this group as a, they're like an advocacy group for people with student loans, federal student loans. And they had a lot of information about all the ins and outs and specifics about which loans and things. But that was one of the questions asked, if someone could, if they would want to move to a private lender to be able to take advantage of things. And the person answering is like, it would be, there are so many risks in doing that it would be hard pressed for me to say, do that just to take advantage of this one quick thing where you could skip like a couple payments, because it's not going to be worth it. But if you do have that direct student loan, I'll send you that that information that's got that talks about, you know, we don't have to make payments through September, and that they won't add any interest on.
And Kathy, you and I had talked before this that you were going to follow up with a document.
Yes.
So it sounds like that document can also have that information.
Yes.
And it sounds like we've answered a lot of Meredith's questions and some of Dana's. If there is anything else.
And I'll look at Denver too, because I apologize, I looked at Missouri. I'll look at Denver Department of Labor for something to add to that too.
Well, wonderful. Well, it just means the world to me that you were willing to hop on. I know we kind of gave you short notice, but it's nice to have a resource to be able to ask questions to and get answers. Well, get whatever answers we're able to get under these circumstances.
Yeah, and I apologize, but so much of this is like spinning and coming out that it's hard to, and sometimes for some of your questions, which are excellent questions, there are no answers right now, you know.
But I think you gave some really great, you know, this whole idea of getting credit when you don't need credit I think is incredibly valuable. And then also this idea of applying for everything you can apply for, even if some of it becomes irrelevant. I will say this morning, I was on a call with somebody and I had heard that the PPP or the EDIL, if you do one of those, that you can't do the payroll tax credit, this payroll tax credit.
Yes.
I was talking to somebody and they're like, we would advise you to apply for all of it.
Yeah.
And so I just think that that's this general message right now is, even though it's a pain in our ass, do as much as humanly possible and set us up for as much success as possible. So I appreciate you. Those two sentiments I think are incredibly valuable and the thing that all of us can do at this point.
And that's a good point too, because I saw that with the payroll credit, if for some reason you own a business and don't qualify for don't get the other things, you can take your credit, you can put off paying your payroll taxes and take a credit for that. But yes, thank you, Stacey.
Yeah.
This is Dana again. Thanks, by the way. And I agree. These things are changing hourly, so there's no way to keep up with it almost right now. But one quick thing, I don't know if this is something to look into or to recommend to other people. I did get some emails through QuickBooks Online. So small business owners or self-employed people who use that, supposedly they're setting up something to make it very user-friendly, that if you already have a QuickBooks account, they're going to make it easier to apply for some of this. As of last night, it said like pending, as in I haven't logged in today, but any time now you might be able to log in, and they are supposedly going to make some of this stuff a lot easier directly through QuickBooks. That's just an FYI. If you know any people that you need to push that way, that could be advantageous.
Yeah, the only and that's great that they're doing that. I would just double check that works, because I know some people were using ADP, put like a summary statement together for their clients to use, the people that use the ADP payroll to apply for the loans, and the information was not correct and was not accurately working with the loans. So it actually was holding people up and taking them longer to get through the application process. So keep in mind, yes, that's great. And if they haven't had it yet, maybe they are taking their time to do it. But all the servicing companies and companies too are trying to react so quickly to some of these things that there sometimes are little snags in the process.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys very much for taking the time to listen to me and